This is QTV News with me, Mumudu Gajaga. Our top stories. JCB Mendy arrested. Ministry of Justice says the ex-soldier was trying to flee the country. TRRC visits Fajara Barracks, Joswang Prison and a secret detention center in Kanifing as part of its mandate. Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and UNESCO hosted a 4-day workshop. MOPSI and international experts gathered to assess readiness to meet the 21st century competences. The FAO organizes ECOWAS integration meeting. The 2-day validation exercise centered on integration and coordination of regional food security policies. Office of the Ombudsman holds awareness-raising workshop. The workshop is aimed at increasing awareness of the Ombudsman's role in fighting injustice in the public sector. Those are our top stories, and now the news in detail. The Ministry of Justice reveals that it has requested the Gambia Police Force to arrest and detain Mr. John C.B. Mendy, who was attempting to leave the country today, 2nd April 2019, for Casamas in the southern region of Senegal through the Djibouti-Syliti border crossing point. Babakar C. has the rest of this story.
The public will recall that Mr. JCB Mendy appeared before the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, TRRC, on 19th and 20th of March 2019 and testified about many events including the 11th November 1994 incident. Based on a totality of evidence adduced before the TRRC so far, and in light of the other available evidences in the possession of the TRRC, it was evident that Mr. JCB Mendy was outrageously dishonest in his testimony about his role in several incidents of violence. Mr. Mendy's outrageous dishonesty, in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, betrayed a lack of empathy towards the families of the victims and the unwillingness to cooperate and assist in the reconciliation process in the country. Consequently, the Attorney General, in order to encourage truth-telling before the TRRC and strongly discourage any attempts to deliberately conceal the truth in the face of the mounting evidence, recommended the immediate dismissal of Mr. JCB Mendy and requested the cooperation of his employers at the Gambia International Airlines, GIA, in this regard. The ministry wishes to reiterate its call for all witnesses who appeared before the TRRC to be truthful at all times, especially in respect of their involvement in human rights violations and abuses. The country needs to establish the truth about these events, and the families of the victims deserve to know the truth about their loved ones. The perpetrators are particularly encouraged to be truthful and to take advantage of the amnesty provisions at the TRRC and give reconciliations a chance. The ministry will like to further reassure the general public that the TRRC process is not a witch hunt and that there is no need for anyone to abscond from the country, but that any attempts to deliberately conceal the truth in the face of overwhelming evidence will be regarded as an attempt to undermine the integrity of the process and an unwillingness to cooperate and assist in the reconciliation process, and will therefore bear serious consequences. Meanwhile, the public will be informed about further developments in the JCB Mendy case as it unfolds. The release ends.
Commissioners of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission Tuesday embarked on a site visit to Fajara Barracks, Joswang Prison and a secret detention center in Kanifing. The visit forms part of the Commission's resolve to meet its institutional reform targets. Ansumana Esonyasi reports.
As part of their mandate for institutional reform, Commissioners of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission Tuesday embarked on a visit to 3 locations. The 3 places visited were Fajara Barracks, Joswang Juvenile Prison and a secret detention center in Kanifing. Led by Chairman Dr. Lamin Sise, commissioners first visited Fajara Barracks, where they were taken on a conducted tour of the barracks by Commanding Officer Major Dawa RSM W01 Lamin Fati.
We are looking at that record or establishing what exactly happened with a view to promoting healing and reconciliation and where appropriate reparations. That's what Sama brought us here. There have been references in the public hearings that we've been having, the testimonies to events Sama here at the Fajara Barracks. Now, in order to establish record, in order to come up with the right kind of recommendations, we needed to familiarize ourselves with these venues where events Sama had taken place.
During the visit, The TRRC delegation were shown the old cookhouse, the anteroom, the sentry, the big old warehouse where former ministers of the Jara administration were detained and allegedly mercilessly tortured. They also saw the back gates council members and their orderlies used when they attacked the barracks on the night of 10th November 1994 and the field where victims of the November 11 incident were allegedly summarily executed. From Fajara Barracks, the TRRC delegation visited the prison in Josuan, where they inspected both the juvenile and adult wings, where 102 inmates are currently serving various jail terms. The delegation was received by Commissioner Haruna Job, who took them on a tour of the facility. At the adult wing, commissioners visited blocks 5 and 6, where some of them raised concerns about the condition of prisoners. Meanwhile, a single old block labeled with the infamous name Bambadinka was found on the outskirts of the main adult blocks. Here it is alleged that journalists, politicians and even security detainees were kept in solitary confinement and subjected to various forms of torture. At the juvenile wing, commissioners were told that there are 14 inmates currently on remand and undergoing trial for allegedly stealing mobile phones. To everyone's shock, the youngest inmate is aged 12, while other inmates are said to be at least 15 years old. From the juvenile prison in Josuan, commissioners visited one of the secret detention centers in Kanifing. Metaphorically nicknamed the Safe House, this structure has been allegedly used as a detention center by former agents of the defunct National Intelligence Agency and the former president's infamous hit squad known as the Junglers. Here we found hooks similar to those found on the walls at the National Intelligence Agency's headquarters during the commission visit and cell-like doors with no lights or ventilation. The Safe House is located in a settlement area near the prison. The place has a nice building where NIA officials are believed to have been residing. The Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission is mandated to probe human rights violations that allegedly happened between July 1994 and January 2017. Ansumana Sonyasi for QTV News.
A regional workshop called Optimizing Assessment for All, hosted by the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education with support from UNESCO, commenced on Tuesday. The workshop, which also features experts from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Zambia and the USA, kickstarts a 4-day capacity building initiative to explore and develop an assessment of the 21st century skills and qualities for teachers. Babu Kursi has that story.
The Optimizing Assessment for All program is the first in a series of 4 workshops in line with the vision of the Gambia's Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, which has a target to provide universal access to education for all children in the country. The Gambia, DRC, Kenya and Zambia are countries that have made explicit goals strongly aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals to achieve both access to education and high-quality learning experiences and outcomes. Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, Jere Sanyang, highlighted the importance of the training and the opportunity this creates for the participating countries.
It is a rare opportunity, difficult to come by, for 2 strategic institutions like Brookings and Talent to partner on such an important subject. The opportunity will enable you properly review and bridge any gap that may exist between policy, intent, curriculum, and real classroom practice in relation to 21st century skills development or requirements. It is quite often that our education visions and missions can be explicit in addressing the skills requirements supported by well-designed curriculum, but there may be gaps in the delivery system. In some cases, the gaps may be as a result of a poor reflection of the skills needs in our curriculum.
Esther Kerr from the Brookings Institute of Washington, D.C. said research was conducted in 9 countries in Africa to assess the level of education and how students were progressing with learning 21st century competencies.
Countries, including here, the Gambia, Senegal, DRC, Congo, and others, Chad, Mali, and so on. We had all of these countries go and collect examples of assessments from classrooms because we wanted to see if the teachers were using assessment to help promote better learning. to see whether the assessments were reflecting 21st century skills like problem solving or critical thinking, collaboration. All of these skills are skills that are very valued in the workplace. And one of the concerns in education is that those skills are not being taught. And so what we're trying to do is to understand how assessment in the classroom can help the teachers to focus more on developing those skills in the children. So that's the research that we did across 9 countries in Africa. Now we're moving into a main study with the Gambia and with DRC, Congo, and with Zambia, and perhaps with Kenya. And with this work, we're doing much more intensive work. We're starting to work with teachers to find out how we can change the way they're assessing so that they can use the results of assessment to help them understand where they need to teach the children. Because the assessment can tell them at what level the children are functioning, and then they can make sure that the teaching is at a level that the children can understand. This is just the first workshop, so we have 4 workshops over a year, and during each of the workshops we'll move into different phases of the work. So after this workshop, we will have selected some early test items and assessments for each of the countries to go back to their students and try them out, see whether the assessments are capturing the sorts of learning that we want them to.
The Optimizing Assessment for All project is being coordinated through the offices of the Teachers and Learning Educators Network for Transformation based at UNESCO Dakar. The Gambia's Directorate of Science and Technology, an in-service training and assessment unit of the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, are partners of the network. Babukar C, QTV News.
The FAO organized a 2-day technical validation as part of a regional policy dialogue for the development of an ECOWAS integrated and coordinated regional food security and aquaculture policy. The initiative aims to contribute to national fisheries policies and strategies from aquaculture to food security and nutrition of the population in West Africa. Ajibintu Drame reports.
The 2-day meeting follows a decision by the ECOWAS Commission in partnership with European Union to provide political assistance in improving food and nutrition security and to eradicate hunger, food insecurity and malnutrition. Siranjai Sanyang, representative of FAO, says the importance of the workshop is to set up policies and find solutions to the challenges and issues of sustainable development of fisheries and aquaculture in West Africa. She adds that she hopes the workshop will achieve their objectives. She concluded by challenging the participants to put into practice their knowledge gained. Dr. Andrew Bayo, an FAO consultant from Sierra Leone, conducted a study in the Gambia on the country's policies and strategies on food and nutrition. Dr. Bayo highlighted the strategies and policies of his study and the challenges and weaknesses of the food and nutrition sector in the Gambia. He concludes with recommendations of his research. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News.
A one-day workshop for public institutions was organized by the Office of the Ombudsman at a local hotel on Tuesday. The aim is to increase awareness of the role and functions of the Ombudsman in fighting administrative injustice in the public sector. Babukar Sise reports.
Speaking at the workshop, Fatunjai Jallo, the Ombudsman, says her office has made great strides in the execution of its mandate.
We ensure that no unfair practices hide in the shadows. We identify causes of problems and make recommendations for changes to procedures, practices, and policies to prevent similar problems from recurring. This contributes to the quality of public confidence in government. The creation of the Ombudsman institution is for the pursuance of the lofty ideals of good governance through access to justice, promotion of the rule of law, and protection of human rights.
One of the functions of the Ombudsman is to investigate complaints of maladministration only in public institutions, such as unlawful dismissals, salary-related cases, and discrimination, among others. But what about the right of other citizens working in the private sector? Jomake Kamara, Director of Communications at the Ombudsman's office, explains.
The private sector is not included because the Ombudsman is working in accordance with the law. The Ombudsman Act did not provide for the Ombudsman to investigate the private sector. The Constitution, 1997 Constitution, did not provide for the Ombudsman to investigate the private sector. The avenues that are open to those Gambians is the Department of Labor, or you can go to the Industrial Tribunal for industrial dispute issues. As for the issue of Ombudsman covering the private sector, the Ombudsman, we have included it as part of our plans that it should be done, and we will work towards it.
A participant, Abdu Baji from Gambia International Airlines, explains the importance of the event.
I think the training definitely is educative. The training is all about what the mandates of Ombudsman is all about, and then how Ombudsman carry out their functions, and then also the relationship between Ombudsman and all the government institutions, their coverage, how they investigate, and then when complaints come to them, how they react, and then how they carry out these investigations. So it is essential for us to know as institutions, government institutions I mean, to understand what the office of the Ombudsman is all about, how they carry out their investigations, and what trigger the Ombudsman to act.
Apart from investigating complaints of administrative injustice in the public sector and parastatals, the Ombudsman also investigates the rights of prisoners and detainees and declaration of assets by public officers. Babukar Sise, QTV News.
Before we end this bulletin of the news, a recap of our main stories. JCB Mendy arrested. Ministry of Justice says the former soldier was trying to flee the country. Commissioners of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission Tuesday embarked on a site visit to Fajara Barracks, Josuan Prison and a secret detention center in Kanifing as part of their mandate. The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and UNESCO host a 4-day workshop. MOPSI and international experts meet to assess readiness of the 21st century competencies. The FAO organizes an ECOWAS integration meeting. The 2-day validation exercise focuses on ECOWAS integration and coordination of regional food security policies. Office of the Ombudsman holds awareness-raising workshop. The workshop aims to increase awareness of Ombudsman's role in fighting injustice in the public sector. That's it for this edition of the news. Join us tomorrow for more news.